Just as moths are drawn to swarm a porch light, similarly, wherever there are positions of power and authority, like iron filings to a magnet, there's a type of people who are drawn to those positions. Sadly, 90% of those people, at least, are rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. This is a reference both to Sturgeon's Law as well as Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. Let's take a deeper look. There is a special type of person who strives to build themselves up by breaking others down. I remember in junior high, an acquaintance of mine was very excited about his practice of guitar. And so I asked him to teach me. And I showed up at his house, and all he did was show off. And so basically, he wasn't interested in teaching me. He was interested in overwhelming me so that he could feel superior to me. And I would love to tell you that that's unique, but it's not. There are just so many people who do this. Like, Dennis Miller used to talk about this before he went to the dark side, that the worst thing about doing marijuana is hanging out with people who do marijuana, who at a certain point in the evening will start seeing who could outdo each other with tales of Bruce Lee's awesomeness. Similarly, when some people speak of meditation, they try to describe it in as inaccessibly as possible. It's only for special people with special health and special intelligence who can do special things, and that's not you. There are people there are three primary lineages of Buddhism: Theravada, Mahayana, and Tantrayana. And this type of individual is found in each of these schools, whether they call it perfection of concentration or tranquil abiding or the 8 jhanas. They speak of things like basically that there are 8 levels of trance that are only for special people who can do special things. There are countless meditation manuals written that say you can't expect to accomplish any of the 8 jhanas unless you have perfect morality. However, and this is important, jot this down, that is the opposite of what the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught that no, ethics don't give birth to meditation. Meditation gives birth to ethics. But you might say, hey, Lama Jigme, aren't you a big old geek and a wannabe nerd? And the answer is yes, yes, I am. As a neurodivergent, I rely heavily on neuroscience, although I am not a neuroscientist. And fMRI studies, functional magnetic resonance imaging studies, teach conclusively that if our practice of mindfulness and meditation is effective, it spontaneously the bottom part of our brain, the fear center of our brain, the amygdala, stops lighting up. And instead, the anterior cingulate gyrus, the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, that lights up in its stead. So that demonstrates that it's not ethics that give birth to meditation, but meditation that support the highest love, which is spontaneous and uncontrived. One of my spiritual heroes, the late Karma Chakme Rinpoche, insisted that the essence of the vows of renunciation is all distills down to one thing: non-violence. Look at the Buddha's original teachings. Look at the Eightfold Path. 50% of the Eightfold Path pertains to loving kindness. 1/4 of loving kindness pertains to loving aspirations, wishing love. 3/4 of loving kindness pertains simply to kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce. You know, not trying not to be a Karen who strives to get people in trouble, trying not to be a Chad who tries to drive other people out of business. You know, kindness. So the fundamental teaching of the Buddha is that the enthusiastic practice of mindfulness and meditation gives birth to loving kindness. So the elitists who tell you that first you must be perfect in your conduct before you can do something as difficult as meditation is just not founded and not supported in reality. Personally, I'm neurodivergent. I have trouble pronouncing this word. Please bear with me. ADHD, which is a combination of autism and ADHD, exacerbated by many health disorders, including myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is a winning answer in Scrabble, but it really kind of sucks. So anyway, there are such thing as ADHD meltdowns. There are such things as autistic meltdowns. I've spent most of my life trying not to have them, trying not to be a scary, scary person who says cruel things and frightens people. And what I have found is that in the midst of a meltdown, it's still possible to practice mindfulness and meditation in a way that can help us to be the person that our dog already thinks we are. I've said all that to say this. The elitists are wrong. Anybody, no matter how broken you may be, can practice mindfulness and meditation. And that gives birth, or strengthens, and that gives birth to the highest love, which is spontaneous and uncontrived. You see, one of the great myths of the pursuit of whether it's tranquil abiding or jhana is this. They teach that the 8 states, the 8 levels of trance are special, but they're not. They are naturally occurring phenomena. Every night when we fall asleep, we go through those 8 levels of trance. Every morning when we wake up, we go through those same 8 levels in reverse. There is nothing special here. It's already hardwired into our body and brain. And this is important. When we try to slow it down and label it, all that's doing is indulging our controlling tendencies. This is important. We can be controlling or we can be laid back. We can be yang or we can be yin. We can follow in the footsteps of Darth Sidious, or we can follow in the footsteps of Qui-Gon Jinn. I choose Qui-Gon Jinn, and I invite you to do the same thing. To go back into Buddhist mythology, we can walk in the footsteps of the cousin of the Buddha, Devadatta, or we can walk in the footsteps of the Buddha himself and choose peace and being laid back. Remember, in the final portion of the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha promised that one could accomplish full enlightenment in as little as 7 days, which precludes something that is elitist, that's only for special people, that requires great arduous effort and a great epic Tolkien-like odyssey. No, it doesn't. It's super easy. Anyone can do this. And if someone tells you that you can't, if someone tells you that it takes the length of 3 great aeons to do it, thank them for their time, and run away because this person is either really confused or really deceptive. One of the myths, and this I was taught this by my first fundamentalist culty Tibetan teacher, and this has been taught by several of them, not just one, was that in hypnosis, in meditation, you need deep trance, so you can create states of hypersuggestibility, so you can alter your belief system. Now that has been taught, that teaching has crept like black mold into a hut. That teaching has crept into every sect of Buddhism, but it's not embraced by all the teachers, only 90%. Remember Sturgeon's Law, there's always going to be 10% who get it. You see, my friends, and this is important, we don't believe our way to nirvana. Hypnotism is about altering our beliefs. We don't believe our way to nirvana. And why not? Well, for the same reason we don't think our way to nirvana. And why not? Because, well, remember the words of Vince Lombardi. Fatigue made cowards of us all. Remember the words of Egon in the penultimate reel of the first Ghostbusters movie. Sorry, Vinkman, I'm terrified beyond the point of rational thought. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. Fatigue makes the higher functions of our brain impossible. The Buddha's method is not predicated upon belief or cognition. It's predicated upon the intelligent use of our spinal cord, the intelligent use of our autonomic nervous system, which we'll go into in greater detail in a minute or two. But basically, we're relying upon the natural processes to notice and release that are already wired into our spinal cord, that are accessible during each inhalation, during each exhalation, regardless of how much pain we're in, or how fatigued we're in, or how frightened we are, or how injured we are. As long as we're alive, as long as our heart is still beating and our lungs are still pumping, we have access to the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, gifts to us of mindfulness and meditation. The Buddhist path is not about altering our beliefs. I thought it was. My teachers told me it was. I studied hypnotism before I studied Buddhism, and then I tried to bring what I knew about hypnotism and neurolinguistic programming and neuroassociative conditioning into the path, and I wound up, metaphorically speaking, running full force into a brick wall, which is not my idea of a good time. It wasn't until I was fortunate enough to receive the essential teachings that I'm giving you today that I was able to see the true power of meditation. I got to find the right button over here. I'm a little confused. Oh, yes, that's it. Much better. Before we start this morning's meditation practice, I think it could be fun if together as a team we chanted the Saturday morning excerpt of Yongjie Xuanjue's Song of Enlightenment. And if you speak Chinese, I apologize for my mispronunciation. I'm trying my best, but I'm really a stupid Caucasian. And it takes super intellect to read and write and speak Chinese. Before we start, allow me to remind you that here's my policy. If at any point during this morning's live stream, any point at all, you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist chanting, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Now, if you're using a laptop or a desktop, that window will be on the right. If you're using your phone in the vertical mode, it'll be right here. That's my Eric Cartman imitation, by the way. Let's see here. Ah, yes, button 14. And away we go. From my youth I pile studies upon studies, in sutras and shastras I searched and researched, classifying terms and forms oblivious to fatigue. I entered the sea to count the sands in vain, and then the Tathagata scolded me kindly as I read, "What is the profit in counting your neighbor's treasure? My work has been scattered and entirely used." Sorry, let's try that again. "My work had been scattered and entirely useless. For years I was dust blown by the wind. If the seed nature is wrong, misunderstandings arise, and the Buddha's doctrine of immediacy cannot be attained." Remember, the Buddha taught immediacy. He taught rapid enlightenment. If someone tells you it's going to take you decades or lifetimes or aeons, they are full of poo-poo. Shravaka and Pratyeka students may study earnestly, but they lack aspiration. Others may be very clever, but they lack prajna. Stupid ones, childish ones, they suppose there is something in an empty fist. They mistake the pointing finger for the moon. They are idle dreamers, lost in form and sensation. I kid you not, there are people who think you can bliss your way to nirvana. They think you can drink your way to nirvana, or smoke your way to nirvana, or screw your way to nirvana. And there's a little bit more to it than that. Not supposing something is the Tathagata. This is truly called Kuan Yin, the Bodhisattva who sees freely, being free of our preconceptions. When awakened, we find karmic hindrances fundamentally empty. But when not awakened, we must repay all our debts. Excuse me. Oh, what an adventure. So I would like to start the formal practice and meditation explanation, but first a moment of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. I'm a sci-fi geek who as a little boy was affected deeply by Star Wars: A New Hope. I spent my life striving to master meditation so that I and all those I affect can become the people that our dogs already think we are. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Wrong button. Okay, here we go. So we're going to begin with a recitation of empathetic bodhicitta and enthusiastic refuge. We're going to start with the triplet chant, which is very sedating. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, by relying on the Buddha's example and instructions and students. And now the concise, invigorating bookend version. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. Three jewels are simply the Buddha's example, the Buddha's instructions, and the Buddha's students. Hi, I would be the third one. Okay, at long last, here is the vaunted meditation instructions. Mindfulness and meditation are known by many terms, including Zen, Proto-Zen, Chan, Dhyana, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati Yoga, Dzogchen, and Treksha. They are all the same technique, regardless of the fancy terms we use. As I mentioned, as I alluded to earlier, The key to mindfulness is as follows. Well, mindfulness must not be confused with active concentration. For during each inhalation, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which is wired to simply perceive, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. As such, during each inhalation, we are wired to notice all manner of things, including sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. We are wired to notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, imaginings, and confabulations. We can notice the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful. We can notice the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. What do we do with all the stuff that we can notice? We meditate upon it. But how does that work? During each exhalation, we are wired to effortlessly and automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to both physically relax as well as mentally release. In fact, it could be said that our mechanism of mental release surfs the carrier wave of physical relaxation. Therefore, let's tie this up in a big red bow. During each inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. And during each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease, which is a synonym of relaxing. And that's it. So together as a team, let's meditate as transformatively as Princess Leia on Ajahn Kloss under the guidance of her brother, Luke Skywalker. Meanwhile, I forgot something. I'll be right back. Please bear with me. Oi, here we go. Oh. Okay. And now, together as a team, let's meditate. The first passage of the third Zan Patriarch's Faith and Mind describes, and I paraphrase, enlightenment is easy and effortless if you have no desire. So therefore, our job is not to repress our desires or aversions, but to notice whatever comes up, including our desires and dreads, as we breathe in, and relax into their ultimately non-graspable nature as we breathe out. That is the transcendence of the fundamental duality of Buddhism, according to Buddhism. The great irony is many people are taught that this antidote to hate is to hate. In other words, to shove whatever aversion or dread we experience, to shove it away. And that the antidote to desire is more dread, to shove that away as too. But it's not. Whatever we notice, be it glorious or grotesque, we have one response to it. Relax into our exhalation. The goal of this is not to make those drives go away. It's not to liberate us from the presence of those drives, but rather from the tyranny of those drives. Two children at play in the park take their games very seriously. Their grandfather, watching them on the bench, does not. Meditation, when done properly, transforms us from a petulant child to a bemused grandparent. In the Proto-Zen Lotus School, it was said that as you inhale, you perceive, or you practice perception. As you relax into your exhalation, you practice cessation. And you might ask, what if something comes up and it won't go away? And the answer is you play with it like a kid with a new toy on Christmas morning. Just play with it, have fun. You've just joined us. Welcome to our practice. When you have specific questions about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. I check for questions about once every 8 minutes or so. So if it seems like it's a short eternity between you typing and sending a question, me responding to it, please do not take that personally. But if you've just joined us, as we breathe in, we practice mindfulness by silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this. And as we exhale, we practice meditation by physically relaxing as best we can during each exhalation, by as silently and mentally we recite the monosyllabic verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. There are many people who claim to be meditation teachers. So the key to identifying an authentic meditation teacher is not their credentials, not their letters of recommendation, not their resume. The tried and true method, according to the Buddha, is this: apply their teachings at least once every 12 hours for 7 consecutive days. If you cannot do that, you probably aren't ready to be a meditation student. If you can do that, after 7 days, notice your results. If you become more anxious and more cranky, then either you haven't understood the teachings or that teacher isn't really equipped to help you. If after 7 days you have an increase of peace and an increase of love, then you're probably on the right track. So the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. And if someone opposes that, it's because their teachings don't work. If you wish to learn meditation and the teacher and the students are cranky and rigid and fearful, ask yourself, do I want to be like that? It has been said by men and women wiser than myself that love gives the benefit of the doubt. If there is a teacher in your life who can't or won't give people the benefit of the doubt, and if his students can't and won't give others the benefit of the doubt, then that is a commentary on the efficacy of the techniques that they practice. I should say rather sad commentary. As a survivor of child abuse, I am I have been conditioned by the myth that says if I'm just loving enough, my abuser will become kind. And if I'm just wise enough, my abuser will become wise. And if I'm just wonderful enough, my abuser will be freed from the prison cell, the tyranny of cruelty and confusion in their life. But that was not the case. If someone is a malignant narcissist, if their central nervous system is not wired correctly, if their anterior cingulate gyrus is somehow been isolated from the rest of the brain, if someone is incapable of empathy, then no amount of wisdom and love on our part can fix that. And if someone is stuck in their psychopathy or sociopathy or malignant narcissism, we can still love them, but it's most sustainable to love them from afar. Whether that person is a parent or a step-parent, a political authority or a spiritual authority, if that person is unwell and malicious, we must do what we can. We must meditate in such a way to generate the centered spontaneity, and we must acquiesce to that centered spontaneity in choice and utterance and in deed, and allow ourselves to be taken away from under their influence. The essential instructions of meditation was taught by the Buddha and described as the 7 enlightenment factors. They are mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, collectedness, and balance. If the style of meditation practice you work with undermines your joy and your peace, if it makes you, then it's probably not in alignment with the Buddha's teachings. If you have just joined us within the last 8 minutes, welcome aboard. When you have any specific questions about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window, and then be sure to click the send icon, which looks like a folded paper airplane. If you're watching on your laptop or your desktop, that chat window will be on your right. If you're watching on your smartphone, that in a vertical mode, that'll be right down here. The chat window, that is. In essence, as we breathe in, we're practicing mindfulness. This is an act of concentration. It is perception, vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. As we exhale, we're practicing meditation, which is simply physical relaxation and mental release. These are all natural processes in harmony with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems ensconced within our spinal cord. Therefore, during each inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and during each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease, which is a synonym of relax. These instructions are nothing special. They are found in all three schools of Buddhism, though only practiced by about 10% of the folks out there. In the earliest school, earliest transmission school, they are known as the 7 enlightenment factors. Later, they were described as Mahamudra or Mahasandhi. Before there was Zen, there was the Lotus School, who taught us perception, to correlate perception and cessation with our inhalation and our exhalation. Later, in the writings of Zen Master Dogen, we are taught to notice form and mind, and then let them fall away. Basics, the exact same thing, just different terminology. If your eyes are closed, this would be a good time to open them gently. Let's seal this practice with a bit of the old chanting, beginning with kind ethics and concluding with the four immeasurables. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness, spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy, may no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel on Patreon. In approximately 9 hours or so, I would very much like to return to lead this evening's meditation class and practice. Due to medical appointments, I won't be able to lead the late morning or early afternoon group practices, but I hope to return this evening. If you are as geeky as me, this is the way.